Oh, be right back, guys. Girls, come on. Go out the room. Come on, Lyra. Go on. Oh, all right. Let's get some sharing done. So, go here, type in. Also, no countdown this week because apparently the countdown intro music is copywritten. Hell if I know. Oh, there's a human. Hello, human. Man, I didn't even grab a Red Bull beforehand. Flint politics a reboot. Link in chat. Hey, how you doing, Sarah? All right, 2 seconds while I grab another Red Bull because this little baby can is just about dead. Alrighty, Red Bulls it is. And all right, I think we're just about set and ready. Just need Wintus to go ahead and approve that share. If you would do me a favor and share on your social, that'd be great. I don't got like all the places that Mickey and Wintus can post to. I've been kicked out of most of them for some reason. Weird. All right, Mama Quill. Now, by the way, super producer, if and when you see this, that isn't a Saya Quill. If you're on the 810 platform, that is always Mama Quill. She's been here from the beginning, and she has given us some good advice. So always Mama Quill. Always. We have to show her that respect and love. I think she was the first member of the 810 family, so we got to show her that respect. Ain't that right, Mama Quill? All right. So we're going to do something a little bit different today. Hey, Sherry. And there's a reason for this. Number one, everything that's happened in Flint has gotten. It's been talked to death. We know what happened with Hasselbring. Okay. There's no secret to it. I think James said it best. They need a new lawyer. They need a better lawyer. It seems like Millhouse walked in there and didn't know which way was up. That's all I can say about it. I think Mickey and Wintus really pounded in on it over the last 2 days. Okay. And I know that there's going to be 1,001 podcast about it this weekend. That's cool. So I'll let everyone else talk about that. I want to talk about what had everyone up in arms over the weekend. Well, over the week. Because in a way, it does tie back to Flint in a very strong way, actually. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Make sure I don't have any extra tabs open that are weird. Cool. Add to scene. We're going to talk about the spending freeze for a minute, folks. And there's a reason for it. Okay. I'm not going to hit the play button here because I don't feel like it, for one. But we've got the actual reading right here. Is there a way to blow this up? Nope. Reverse. Man. Screw this. All right. So there was questions. From a reporter to the press secretary. It's caused a lot of confusion around the country among Head Start providers, among providers, from services to homeless veterans, provide, Medicaid providers, states saying they're having trouble accessing the portal. Could you help us clear up some confusion? Direct quote. Miss Caroline goes, yes. Reporter, give some certainty to folks. And then also, that is uncertainty. How does that uncertainty service the president's voters? Here's the long quote. Well, I think there's only uncertainty in this room amongst the media. There is no uncertainty in this building. Let me provide certainty and clarity that all of you need. This is not a blanket pause on federal assistance and grant programs that the Trump administration or grant programs, man, from the Trump administration. Individual assistance that includes, I'm not naming everything that's included, but just to give you a few examples: Social Security benefits, Medicare benefits, food stamps, welfare. Stop jumping around, you stupid computer. Welfare benefits. Assistance that is going directly to individuals will not be impacted by this pause. So while everyone is running around and saying, oh, well, this is going to impact veterans, this is going to impact Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, I'll tell you right now, I woke up this morning and I had 4,100 and change extra dollars in my account. Why? Because I got paid. And here's the crazy thing. Here's what's wild to me. This press conference was at noon, and every media outlet, I'm talking Fox, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, anything with a C in it really, was running around saying that this is going to do X, Y, and Z. It's going to stop kids from having meals at school. It's going to stop. Right here, it just said that is not the case. This is coming from the press secretary herself. Okay. Department of Government, who is working alongside OMB. I don't think I can read the rest of this because YouTube is so happy to quickly demonetize and hit you with a strike. And let's move on to the next part, right? The U.S. federal budget as of fiscal year 2024, let me go ahead and share this screen. Just a straight Google show. In fiscal year 2024, the United States federal budget was 6.75 trillion in spending with a deficit of 1.83 trillion. All right, we can drop that now. Remember those numbers though, 6.75. And then of course, we have this. And this hits close to home for anyone who's lived in Flint, watched Flint for a while. We can also talk about Dalton and that area because a lot, Dalton, Thornton, Flint all have pretty much the same problem: corruption out the wazoo. The Government Accountability Office, or GAO, estimates the federal government loses between $233 billion and $521 billion annually to fraud. Fraud. All right. So putting a pause to federal spending, in many cases grants and the such, to audit so we can cut down on $512 billion. I mean, hell, the Department of Defense spending is something like 800 billion. We lose almost as much in fraud as we do on the Department of Defense, on the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Space Force. Sherry, I think you're with me here. We don't acknowledge the Space Force. They're not real yet. And the Coast Guard. We lose almost as much money in fraud. How long have we been saying that just a little bit of the U.S. federal budget could go and fix Flint? Just a little bit. We're talking like aid to Ukraine. Aid to Ukraine, by the way, has only come up to about 200 something billion dollars. Okay, so we spend more on fraud than we do with aid to Ukraine. And I've been saying this for 3 years now. Why are we worrying about other countries when we can worry about home, worry about Flint, worry about Dalton, worry about, Chicago, worry about Cleveland? Any place that you go to has problems that definitely could use some money to them. Take a look at the roads in Flint. You have a specific set of taxes and a specific set of money set aside from the city of Flint government every year to fix those damned roads. And every year the same damn pothole is there. that'll take out your axle, that'll blow your tire. I've seen some of those potholes cause accidents. And mind you, the city of Flint won't pay for your tires, even if they ruin them, unless you ruin three at once. 500 and change $1 billion in fraud. Maybe if we paid attention more to where money was going and how it is being used, instead of just throwing it out willy nilly, we can get some things done at home. I saw one report, $50 million, 50 million with an M, in condoms to Gaza. Condoms. Now, I don't know how many of y'all been to the Middle East. I've been there. You don't see a lot of procreative activity in terms that you'd be using a condom for. Certainly no premarital sex, or at least very little of it. $50 million in condoms. How much is a $50 million? How many condoms does that get you? I don't think Tony Wiggins, myself, and let's just pick another guy here, Meat Freak, could go through $50 million of condoms in our lifetime. Are condoms the first things that the people of Gaza need? This is just a horrendous waste of money. How about food, water? How about resettlement programs? How about, I don't know, we could take some of that money and bribe countries right next to Gaza for the refugees, because many of them have their borders closed. Like, hey, Egypt, here's $50 million. We're not going to spend it on condoms like a bunch of dumbasses. How about you open the border and let these folks come through? That kind of makes sense to me. $50 million in goddamn condoms. Or I saw something like $100 million going to Brazil, which, okay, cool. I like Brazil. You like Brazil. We all like Brazil. Brazil is a very pretty country, right? Except it was for studying girl-centered climate activism. I'll be 100% with you. I'm all for studying the women in Brazil. Gorgeous, gorgeous women. But if you have to come up with something like an excuse like, oh yeah, girls studied or girl-centric climate activism, just say you want to look at the girls. I don't know why it's going to cost 100 million, but screw it. Stop playing around. Just tell us. Sherry, $50 million. $50 million worth of condoms, worth of prophylactics. You guys ever watch Band of Brothers? Remember when the CO was going through the barracks and he was freaking out about a guy that had a Foot Locker full of condoms? How is he ever going to win how is he ever going to have the energy to fight a war when he has so many prophylactics? How are the people of Gaza going to do anything if they're using so much energy to use $50 million worth of condoms, worth of prophylactic? Do they really need birth control that bad? It's the lies for me. Because it doesn't matter if Trump's in office or if former Vice President Harris had been in office. Let's be 100% here. The media, one way or another, was going to spend horror stories and terror stories to make us all upset and angry. If Vice President Harris had been in office and has done something similar, they'd be saying the same thing. Oh, it's going to impact veterans. It's going to impact this. It's going to impact that. I think we need to get off the bandwagon of teams. My team over your team. Trump versus Harris. Red versus blue. Dem versus Republican. And we start taking a look at our real enemies. And those of you that know me on a personal level know how I feel about that word enemy. Because to me, enemy is something that must be destroyed. Democrats aren't my enemy. I may have a lot of disagreements politically, but they aren't my enemy. They aren't even adversarial. If you happen to be a Democrat in this chat, you're not my enemy. You're not even my adversary. We just see things differently. I think we all have the same goal here, you know, make the country better for ourselves and for our children. And correct me if I'm wrong here. Like, that's what we all want. We want the country to be better, have a better economy. I want my children to grow up into an area where you don't have to be rich just to afford a car. You don't have to be rich just to have a home. You don't have to have a family that comes from money just to have simple, decent human rights like clean water, of all things. Okay. I think everyone here is on the same page with that. We just have different ways of going about it. To me, right now, the enemy is the media. And I'll explain. If you take a look at the media during the last 4 years, there was always some sort of alarmism and cry and rally saying, hey, President Biden's doing this and it's going to wreck the country and we all must be afraid and terrorized. And what? We're still here. 4 years later, we're still here. I feel the country might be a little worse off, but nowhere to the alarm bells that I kept on seeing on things like Newsmax or Fox. Western civilization hasn't fallen. Just like with El Trumpoid. We'll still be here in 4 years. To me, it's the media has been doing this for years. While we all talk about, clicks and views in the podcasting world, whether it be 810 or Snow or some of the others, and everyone's accusing each other of doing stuff for likes and views. The media has been doing this forever. Sensational headlines, misleading stories to get you to click or to tune in, flip it to there on your TV. And they don't care if they're going to manipulate you into outrage or depression or fear or even, joy, as long as you're tuning in. A lot of the times it's a lot less about spinning a narrative than it is just about getting watch time and making money. So now let's bring this in. Well, we've gone broad scope. Let's go ahead and magnify this a little bit. Let's take a look at some of the things going on. We see 5.x billion dollars, high end, mind you, high end. This isn't a straight up. It's between 200 and change and 500 and change billion dollars, nearly the national defense budget, in fraud and waste. Take a look at the money that came into Flint. And right now we're just going to look at the general budget. How many times are they having to redo that damn brick road? First time, they didn't use the right bricks. Second time, I don't think they padded underneath correctly. So now we're paying, yeah, I guess some of my taxes from last year is still going there, so I can still say technically I'm paying. Now we're paying for it a third time. And you're going to try to tell me that fraud and waste aren't a thing in Flint? When you see it on a larger scale, you get a general idea. You can see it happening. But when it happens right in front of your face, it's too close. You can't see the forest through the damn trees. There's a forest right there. Rot with fraud, with corruption. And you can say what you want. Oh, it's Liddell. Oh, it's Leon. Oh, it was Quincy. Oh, it is Judy. Oh, it is Candace. But how many others have voted on this? Oh, that road is so important. We must have bricks. 9 votes for. Oh, it was messed up. We got to fix it. That road is so important. 7 votes for. And that's just the damned road. How much of that money do you think was mismanaged when it came to repairing the water system, the water infrastructure? Did you know that the University of Michigan came up with a model that would show up to, I believe, 98% accuracy? 98% accuracy. Which pipes going into people's homes were likely to have lead? Did you know that the mayor at the time decided not to use that model? Decided to rip up every home? Did you know how much each time they ripped up a yard to go find a pipe, how much money that cost? Do you know how much money could have been saved? And then you have to ask yourself, well, why would the mayor do that? 98% accuracy. Well, hell, you could use that, retest everyone's water again, find out where that 2% inaccuracy was, and do those yards, retest again, and still spend less money than ripping up 100% of the yards in Flint, going after small, tiny little pipes, and then pretending that a little 2-foot piece of pipe is the cause of all your problems, the cause of all the lead, the cause of all the cancers, or the children's learning disabilities that'll last with them for a lifetime, or maybe the lead that is keeping grown men and women now from having the same mental capacity that they would have prior to the lead. When it came to fixing the pipes in Flint, I believe it was over $600 million came in. That's what's reported. However, once again, we have to talk about fraud and waste and corruption. It wasn't actually 600 million, it was actually closer to about 400 and change million. Why? Well, a lot of old pipes that still didn't have lead in them and old mains that didn't have lead in them, but still old, were given to Flint. And instead of, giving a actual market price on it, what they did is they gave the brand new market value price of a pipe that size. And they said, well, this is worth 50,000, when in reality it might only be worth 30. And then they gave old machinery, such as bulldozers or backhoes or X, Y, and Z. And then gave the new market price, the MSRP for new equipment, and wrote that off. So when they say 600 and change million dollars came into Flint to fix the pipes, that's once again fraud coming from the state this time. Afternoon to you. This time coming from the state, saying we gave this much. And the state used that as a tax write-off in and of its own for the federal government. Okay. And then we had something like 4 or 5 different companies running around Flint, taking up contracts to work on the pipes. Now, I'm not going to name names here because last time I did, I got in trouble. But I'm going to lay something out for you, and we're going to talk about fraud and waste. Of all the companies in Flint, at first, before one consolidated contract happened, one company didn't use the same techniques as everyone else. Everyone else was using something called hydrovac. You use high pressure water, blast away the dirt, turn it into mud, vacuum it up. Quick and easy. Minimal environmental impact even. Minimal labor. Very cheap. Of all the companies in Flint, one company didn't have expertise in doing this, had no experience. Of all the companies in Flint working on the pipes, one company was running behind and wasn't able to keep pace with the other contractors. Now, what if I told you in all those scenarios that one company is the same company, and then rules were changed to benefit that one company? So they made a rule that no one could use hydrovac to make it fair. I'm sorry, I want to be 100% with you right now. I don't care about how fair your damned contracts are when I've got my kids, my neighbor's kids, my city's kids having to buy bottled water to take a damn bath. I really don't give a hot damn how fair it is. Is that the first thing that comes to your mind when you're talking about a poisoned population? How fair the contracts are to fix it? Or should it be, I don't know, get it done now? Fix it now. I want to hear your honest thoughts here. Should the first thing that comes to mind when it comes to contracts to help a poisoned people be fairness? One company doesn't have the expertise, so they're slower. One company isn't able to keep up with the contracts, so it's slower. One company doesn't have the same equipment, so they're slower. So we're going to slow everyone else down to their level to keep it fair. Think about this for a second. While companies 1, 2, and 3 are forging ahead, and now they're being forced to slow down for company 4, did that prolong the time that your child or your parent could have been exposed to lead? Maybe that could have gotten to them a week earlier. And with cancer, we don't know if it's, one exposure that can do it or hundreds of exposures. Sometimes you get lucky and you can be exposed to things, uh, radioactive materials your entire life and never get cancer. Or you can be very unlucky, have one cigarette, just one, and catch lung cancer. It's a crapshoot. But there is a piece of honesty here, a piece of truth, a piece of fact that the more often you're exposed to it, the higher your chances are of getting cancer. So when the city slowed down everything for one company to catch up, how many new cases of cancer popped up from that? How many children developed learning disabilities from that? How many people had organ failure because they had one too many exposures and they slowed down for one company to receive favoritism? Fairness isn't the first thing that comes to mind. And that's the word they used. To me, it's favoritism, nepotism, corruption, fraud. And the fact that the city government would willingly expose people to that to give a friend a leg up in contracts is utterly disgusting. And this isn't a new revelation. I talked about this 3 years ago and I got screamed at. That's why I'm not using names today. But I get angry about it every time I think about it. Because when I moved to Flint, my kids were in elementary. And I saw children every day as I go to pick my kids up from school. And year after year, month after month, I would see more kids having to come out of the special education area because my kids went to DTM, and that was the only place where you had special education in Flint. Think about that for a minute. Snow, you've got kids, and you're on the side of town that was most affected by this. Not the only side, because those idiots in the eighth ward saying, "Oh no, that's a north side problem." Their lack of intelligence hurts me, and it affected all of Flint. But the north side was very, very heavily impacted by this, and they slowed things down. Well, let's move on from that. When you take a look at the ARPA funds, $94 million, and take a look at all the contracts they gave out, all the grants they gave out with that $94 million. Don't you think that there should be an audit, especially considering, 1 million here, 1 million there, 200,000 here, 300,000 there, 50,000 here. It turns out to be a lot of money, and for a lot of these smaller nonprofits, it's life-changing. And so far, since the American Rescue Plan money came to Flint, I have only seen one group go back to city council and show their work. And that was last Monday. Let me see the date here. Monday the 20th. And that was Mott Park. Gentleman came up with a picture of the work they did to make the park more accessible. One. Has anyone seen or heard of the Kennedy Center cleaners? Hide nor tail, hide nor hair. How about all those nonprofits that supposedly came up to help with blight? Have you seen any houses torn down? Have you seen anyone spend $50,000 worth of that money that they asked for? Now you'll see a cleanup that rents a dumpster. How much does that dumpster cost a day? Maybe $200 or $300. But the houses are still standing. Those old rickety houses. You also have them being used as illegal dump sites. You would think, with the amount of money that they dumped into blight, that Flint would be a shining example. The amount of money that they put into it and the amount of promises and how wonderful those damn promises were, Flint should be looking like Beverly Hills did before the fire. Think about that for a minute. We've all seen the videos of people driving around. Snow, Mickey Wentus drive around and show you, if you do not live in Flint, how terrible some of the conditions are. Buildings being burned down. And still their husk and corpse remains years after. Abandoned houses that have been cut and plugged. They are no longer on the city water. Then no water can go through it. The electric company has already come through, clipped the line, and plugged the gas line. But the doors and windows haven't been secured. So now kids go in there to play because they have nowhere else to go. The amount of money that we've thrown into the damned parks in Flint, and the kids don't have a damn jungle gym. They don't have a soccer field, a baseball field, or a basketball court anywhere near them. No jungle gym, no sand pit, no swing set. They have abandoned houses to go play in. They have places where the floors are rotting and they can fall through. They have nails from portions of the wall where people ripped it open to get at the damned copper inside that these kids can easily hurt themselves on and need to go get a tetanus shot. But hey, gave $50,000 to undo medical debt. How do you get a hold of them? You don't. They blind buy. They go to a hospital and say, "We've got this much money. We want to buy this much debt off of you for this amount." You don't ask them to buy your debt. They don't come to buy your debt. They buy it in bulk. And as 8th Ward Councilman asked, have you talked with any of the hospitals in Flint and secured an agreement? No. So if you were banking possibly on them helping you, once again, fraud. It was a beautiful lie, very beautiful lie, because people want a damn beautiful lie over the cold, hard truth. There is no guarantee that money is being used in Flint. So if a kid's in one of these abandoned houses and the floor collapses and he or she falls down, breaks their leg, or impales their arm on one of those old rusty nails and they have to go get a tetanus shot, do you think undue medical debt's going to pay for that? And let's be serious. Do you think undue would even be needed in Flint? Which, mind you, I still doubt they're even going to be used. But do you think they'd even be needed in Flint if they would have fixed the water on time the first time? If they were to remove these blighted houses? If they were to fix the damned infrastructure? How many diseases and accidents and injuries have been caused by all of this? And they're trying to say $50,000 is going to do X. I'm going to give you X amount of relief. Except, once again, there's no agreement and there's no guarantee. So let's take a look at the total amount of medical debt then that Flint would be in, just from individuals. We're talking millions here. If we go back to the beginning of the water crisis, billions. So for the cheap, low price of maybe 400,000 and doing it right the first time without letting money get to your head and let you pay off friends for a possible kickback, you could have prevented billions in damages to people. But everyone's more excited about a cure rather than prevention. We all know that old adage, an ounce of cure is worth a pound of prevention. Or no, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. But everyone's so excited about that pound of cure. Except now we don't have pounds of it anymore. How much of that money is left? Sitting nestled happily in the general fund of Flint budget. Maybe 12. And once again, they used the revenue replacement clause of the American Rescue Plan to put it there. So now they don't have to put it toward public safety. They don't have to put it toward blight. They don't have to put it toward anything. They could use it on pet projects like some damned willow trees. They could use it on pet projects like their favorite park. They could use it on some damn speed bumps if they want. Hell, they could just sit on it because it's no longer in the America Rescue Plan account. No, it's in the general fund account. If they wanted to, they could just go buy a fleet of new vehicles. If they wanted to, they could just go every cop car replaced, every fire truck replaced. I mean, granted, they did pass a resolution not too long ago to go buy fire trucks, but still using the old ones. And the fire trucks were so damned important, but they forgot about the oxygen apparatus and had to call a special city meeting for that. Weird. Oh, snow. They've been spending that a lot of times since, I want to say, last summer. Whenever we would read ARPA fund application and resolution for it. You would see reallocated. A lot of the time, I still think it's a shell game, pulling from one to put into another. Okay. But you're also seeing it being pulled from the general fund now to be given to these blightsters, to this, to that. The undue medical debt, it said to reallocate. That was from the general fund. So now what you expect to be 40 million, which is actually higher than 40 million. I believe it came out to be 50 million. The first time was 16 million, and then the second time was 34 million in revenue replacement to go to the general fund. Yeah, that's down to about 12 mil, bro. 12. Possibly less, because accounting in Flint is hard. Addition and subtraction is so far beyond the government ability of Flint. So when I was talking earlier about Trump and the spending freeze, it's to do an audit. How many people do you think would be busted if a forensic audit was done of Flint, specifically centered around the Flint water crisis and the ARPA funds? How many people do you believe would be going to prison? And you can look at these damn nonprofits and they could say, oh, yes, we used it for payroll, which, well, within their rights. Okay. You use that for payroll, $50,000. That's 2 employees ish for a year at minimum wage. What did you accomplish with those 2 employees? Because if it isn't $50,000 worth of work, then they need to go to jail. And the people who awarded it to them without looking into or having a follow-up need to go to jail. And yes, I'm talking about counsel there. 1 through 9, I don't care. And the mayor who was recommending this, putting his friends first, needs to go to jail. And his staff need to go to jail. Because we all got so worked up and caught in the media blitz, the enemy's blitz propaganda, screaming and hollering about a federal funding freeze, and it's going to affect Medicaid, it's going to affect Social Security, it's going to affect this, it's going to affect that, that we never turned around and looked at what's happening in our own backyards. Take a look at Dalton. Our friend of the channel, super producer, covers that quite extensively. How much fraud do you think happens there? And they're having to go after other things to get that horrible person out of that seat, out of that controlling seat. Take a look at Pontiac. They just barely looked at Pontiac, and already people are going to prison over small stuff. So why haven't they come to Flint? We have criminal activity happening at the highest forms of government in Genesee County, and no one's accountable. But I guarantee you, if you jaywalk, you're catching a ticket. I guarantee you, if you're so broke you miss a child support payment, you're going to jail. I guarantee you, if you forget to register your damn car by 1 month, you're going to jail. That is, if you have the cops to do it. Let's be completely honest here, Flint cops are absolutely worthless. But you got the sheriff's department, and for the next little while at least, you still have Michigan State Police until they pull out. But the problems Flint faces are so massive and long running. How long has crime been a problem? How many people here have lost a loved one to violence in the streets of Flint? How many people have been robbed? How many stores have been robbed? How many people have had parts of their cars ripped off in the middle of the night? And yet, not one thing I actually saw from the ARPA funds went toward crime. And granted, in the language that they presented for the resolution, it said something about crime. But what was the impact you actually saw? Have you seen any impacts to reduce crime in Flint? Just like, have you seen any impacts to reduce blight in Flint? I guarantee you 100%, 100% that answer is no. You have not seen any. If anything, the problems have just gotten worse. It's tiring. It's infuriating. Because all we can do is vote. But then when your vote goes for corrupt person A or corrupt person B, you're not getting any change. The only person I saw with some change actually looking forward to doing some real good on that ballot that I saw for city council, at least, was Rose Morrow. And here's how I can prove it to you. The smear campaigns about her all over Facebook was one thing. Her campaign office being torched twice was another. That's because she was a threat to the system. She wasn't ready to play ball. You can take a look at Ms. Beverly Biggs. You don't see people scrambling to help her. Not really. You see people being loud about it, but you don't see any actual help. That's because they're both threats to the system. They are both sitting there trying their best to actually improve something rather than improve someone. Now, I'm not going to sit there and say Leon is bad. Okay? I know how he votes and I don't like how he votes. But I believe Rose Morrow would have been a better person for that seat. Take that as you may. Because at the end of the day, I believe Rose, who's been a cop before, understands fraud, understands what to look for. I believe Miss Bev just doesn't give it enough damns what people think about her and doesn't care if someone likes her and doesn't care to pay people off to get that like. Let's face it, Miss Bev is old. I love old people. At this point in her life, she doesn't give a rat's ass about much. Both of these two women are still out in the community today. Win or loss, they're out there today, still doing things for their communities. And neither one of them can do a damn thing about crime. And they're only two women, maybe with some friends and family. They can't do too much about blight. But you know what I have seen them do? I've seen them go out and introduce people to programs that could help them. Help them get out from some of that debt, some of that crippling financial distress, whether it be with their home or their bills. I've seen both women do this. So when it comes to 2026, when it comes to the special election coming up this year now, keep that in mind. Who is still out there? Who is still doing the work? Because you don't need a council seat to do the work, right? The council seat is just extra. The work is always there. And while it may help with some of it, as Ms. Rose Morrow and Ms. Beverly Biggs have proven, there are ways to get it done, though harder than need be without that council seat. Every time money has come into Flint, you've seen fraud and wastage. There's a reason for that. Because poverty is big business. Poverty is lucrative. Every time money comes in to help, specifically you, Miss Tia, specifically you, Snow, Everyone that lives in Flint, they decide, oh, we have to put it in contracts to do certain jobs. If you go ahead and read the language of the money that came in from either state or federal, it said nothing about having to go into contracts to do certain jobs. That's a requirement they came up with by themselves. The thing is, they have to keep you poor and desperate so they can continue to bring money in. Thank you, Miss Tia. But so they can continue to bring money in to pass contracts to their friends. Those friends turn around and give them campaign contributions or promise a very lucrative job after the fact. Sometimes you don't even have to be an elected official for it. I mean, though we could just point at one elected official, Allie Herkenroder, all the backdoor bullshit she did, and she gets a nice, cushy 6-figure a year state job. Take a look at someone who wasn't elected that did a lot of enabling, that did a lot of covering, who just recently received her payment, her reward, Emily. And you can see me popping up in the lives when 810's at council, and I'll make some snide or crude comments. But at the end of the day, she's still disgusting because she enables a lot of this from the administration side, or enabled. Now she's got a nice, cushy 6-figure a year job. To do what exactly? It's a payoff. It's a reward for dedicated service. And that service being, can't cuss, being messing with you. That service being keeping you poor. That service being keeping services from reaching you. And this has been a long con, guys. This has happened long before the water crisis. Flint has been impoverished for quite a while. There have been ways to capitalize on the suffering of others, on your suffering. And as long as someone can weasel or worm their way into a spot to get there, into a spot to direct the incoming money to their friends, you will see this type of fraud and wastage. Until you see someone specifically put away in prison for it, you won't see this stop. And the problem here is it's only a temporary fix, because eventually someone's going to think that they're smart enough to pull it off again, pull it off better. So here's what I encourage you guys to do when it comes to Flint. Take a look at your candidates. And if a candidate says that they're there to do, we're going to talk about council for a minute. If they're there to do, quote, good for my ward or represent my ward, write them off immediately. Write them off. Here's why. Everyone is greedy and selfish, period. I outright admitted it when I was running. I'm selfish. What you want to do is discern the reason they're running. Some people it's to save their business. Some people it's to lower taxes. Some people it's because the water bill's too high. Some people it's because this, that, or the third. You find that reason. And then you find how they talk about it. And if their fix affects more than just themselves, that's the person you vote for. Because if their fix obviously is going to help them, that's just what it is. But if it's written in such a way that it helps everyone else, or at least a large majority of the people in the same car as them, in the same situation, then that's the person you vote for. because now you know how they're going to do it. Alternatively, you look for someone that has a dedicated plan. Not just a I want to do this. How are you going to do this? What are your steps to it? What is your supporting evidence? What is your facts-driven outcome? Where have you seen this before? Show us the steps. That too is someone you can vote for, because they come to you with a plan of action to get something done rather than beautiful words, lovely lies. Something so blasé as just pointing at a problem and saying, I'll fix it. The first thing you have to say is how, because a pretty campaign slogan does nothing. Just like they say yard signs don't vote, campaign slogans don't fix things. This is the God's honest truth. Without the residents of Flint actually doing research into a candidate, finding what motivates them, and finding what that candidate is there for, you're going to have these same problems ad hominem. It's just a fact. And that goes for everyone else here in Florida. There were several people running for sheriff this last year. Only one of them was talking about a very specific problem that happened to them that could happen to anyone else and how they're going to fix it. That's the one who received my vote. He ended up being a Democrat. This is true too, Tia. Some people have a plan of action, but they keep up mess on the back end. Yeah. When it comes to Flint, everyone's feelings are always so hurt. Everyone's always looking to lash out. Everyone's always looking for a fight. It is what it is. It'd be nice to stop seeing that. We've seen these fights since what? 2012? I wasn't even living in Flint and I knew of it because of YouTube videos and news and the fights on council. You're not going to get everyone that gets along. It's not going to be happy daisies and sunshine and rainbows. It'd be nice to see them be able to argue on the outside and get work done on the inside. A council meeting should not last more than an hour. It'd be nice to see actual debate on an issue. I believe we should do X because studies have shown and proven Y and Z. I believe we should not do X because other studies have shown 1 and 2. Compare and contrast points of view. Instead, when it comes time for discussion on this current council, and pick anyone, 1 through 9, you will get backhanded insult, shade, and then you'll get a reason. They'll just say, I'm voting for this. They won't actually give you any facts. They won't give you any information, and they won't back it up. It's usually insults. I think all of you living in Flint should be absolutely fed up with this by now. This my team, her team, his team. This I'm only for this candidate. I'm only for this elected official, and they can do no wrong. And if they do something wrong, then there's something on the back end that forced them, or I'm going to make excuses for them. Cut that shit out. You should look at all of them and call them out when they mess up. You should look at all of them and congratulate them when they do something right. That's just the fact. I don't care. I've been hard on Liddell and Quincy my entire podcasting career. And yet when I've seen them do something right, I still called it out and said, you did good. I'm proud of you. You can do that for everyone else. Irma, that is 100% correct. It doesn't hurt to look at someone that you dislike or politically disagree with, but they do something that you feel is right and to say they did good. And it doesn't hurt to take someone you like that is elected and say, I don't think you voted correctly there, or I think you messed up, or you screwed me over, instead of making these empty promises, these empty excuses for it. And we've got to stop bringing up stuff from years ago. Let's look at today. Let's look at tomorrow, because yesterday's already gone. If something's going to happen about yesterday, it'll happen. Guys, that's my hour. I'm going to try to get a close and engage video tonight done of air defense and spoilers. Iron Dome encompassing the United States is not feasible. I'll go ahead and break that down why. We've also got Mr. Elliott coming on this weekend with Black Watch. Go ahead, please tune into him. He has a lot of great points. Then we got the morning bump popping again Monday. We've got Winter's Hall Show coming back next week. And then we've got someone else, a brand new host, a brand new show. The name of it is Revolution. I'm going to leave the host to introduce themselves. That's coming up very soon. We've got a lot coming on in 2025. Just like last year when we entered 2024, we entered and we did big things. This year, we're looking to improve again. Thank you for spending your time with me, ladies and gentlemen, and have a good day.